Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have to tell you first and foremost, it's been a while, obviously. It's been quite a few months, probably 6 months, 8 months, something like that since I made my last couple of reviews for the H.P. Lovecraft short stories in this big collection here. I still haven't read much more. I've read a couple more stories. I plan on reviewing those in the next couple of days. I'll see what happens when I have time. But I also changed up the recording location I was in. This is kind of a room in the front of the house, so I have to record at nighttime because I like the echo in this room. I like the lamp over there. I think it kind of adds some color to the video a little bit. But also because during the daytime, being by a busy road, there is a lot of noise, just so you know. But anyway, I'm sorry to take so long to come back. I did finish up my Goosebumps channel, Michael Goosebumps fan. I pretty much have just other things that aren't the books. I've read now every single Goosebumps book ever published except for the brand new one that came out called Night of the Squawker. And I'll plan on getting to that at some point. Every once in a while, if you happen to be subscribed to that channel, you will see reviews from me there. But I don't know how much of a comeback this review is, but it is something that older people who knew me from a long time ago, 10 years ago, knew me talking about this writer. Let me try that again. It's an author that I've loved for a while, and I really appreciate his work. This particular book is something I've looked forward to for a while. I finally got a copy a couple of years ago, and I was hoping that this would be something really, really good. And for the most part, I think it is. That author is Richard Lehman. The book I'm talking about is Night in the Lonesome October. Beautiful title, really cool cover, I like that. This is about 350 pages long, and it flies by. Obviously, it's Lehman, so the pacing is really good. But let me tell you this is a little bit of a departure from what Lehman typically did. He is known as a splatterpunk writer, or just a total extreme horror guy, doing nothing but gore and sexual content, that kind of thing. A lot of characters in his books, mainly with men, can be very perverted and creepy and weird like that. Not that this is that different, but it is much, much, much less gory and has much, much, much less sexual content to it, even though it is present for sure. Now, this is the thing. Night in the Lonesome October surprised me in so many ways. It's very much more focused about the experience than the actual story, and that could benefit some readers. A lot of people might like that. A lot of other readers might kind of not be happy with that. It's different for what I'm used to seeing Lehman do. And it's kind of one of those things, I wonder if The Traveling Vampire Show, one of his most famous books, one of his most well-regarded books that I haven't read yet but I've owned forever, it's one of those types of things that apparently that book was also a departure too from what we typically see in Lehman, being kind of a thriller, supernatural-less author. And this is a great example of a book, Night in the Lonesome October, that doesn't have any supernatural elements to it either, because he very rarely did that, unless it was like one rainy night or whatever. Now, on this channel, I've only reviewed probably 3 or 4 Lehman books, but I've read a ton of the guy's work, at least 11 or 12 books at this point. I really, really like his work. I collect his work when I can find books of his. I think he's an extremely knowledgeable guy. I think he had a lot of talent, and it's a shame that he didn't get the kind of recognition in the United States that he should have gotten the way he did in the United Kingdom. And I will tell you this, Night in the Lonesome October could have started to accomplish that, I think, depending on what we're talking about in the book, because of how bizarre it is. Now, what is the book about? Well, I want to tell you this. It is a novel, but it also feels kind of loose. It feels like a lot of short story ideas tied together in a very loose fashion. And if that doesn't impress you, because of some of the previous books I've reviewed, like Horrorween, or that trilogy of books from that particular author, I can't remember the name right now, if you're not into that kind of thing, this is different. This is Lehman doing that. It's all centered around one particular character named Ed, who is essentially a college student who recently had a really bad breakup with a girl named Holly. And Ed decides to start taking walks at nighttime, and he begins to have kind of a thing, not really a relationship per se, but kind of a rebound situation with a girl that happens to be Holly's roommate named Eileen. And Eileen's very good to him. She treats him well. She's very kind overall. She also goes to school. And Ed begins to just take walks at nighttime, go to a donut shop that he loves a whole lot. At this point, you kind of wonder, why am I meandering around what the plot is actually about? Well, it's because the book kind of does that too. Really, the story doesn't kick off until somebody named Randy goes to the donut shop one night and finds Ed there to tell him, hey, where's this other chick, referring to Eileen? Where is she? I want to see her. I want her. She's hot. She's sexy. Are you dating her? All of these weird, creepy things this guy keeps just going after him with. Randy is a total weirdo. He drives a truck, basically tries to kidnap Ed at that point. Ed escapes, and from this point on in the book, you would expect a cat and mouse game, like we typically get with Lehman thriller-esque types of stuff, but it's not like that. It's more of like just the paranoia that Ed goes about his life, continues to, for whatever fucking reason, decide to walk at nighttime, still in the dark, in the very October nighttime, wondering whether he'll ever encounter Randy ever again. Along with all the other creepy things that he sees constantly, like an old lady riding a bicycle, a hag, if you will. It is eerie in that regard. The book manages to have this wonderful feel of October. The writing style is incredible. Lehman was doing some of his best writing I've ever read from him in this book. The atmosphere of fall, everything down to the damn crispness of the air, is something that you can feel and sense while you read this book. It's beautiful. I love that for it. I like Ed. I like how Ed is a little bit different than most of the male characters we get from Lehman most of the time. His kind of goals in life, and also how he's so lonely, kind of like the title says, Night in the Lonesome October. The wandering around at nighttime should be a vibe, as the kids call it nowadays, and it totally is if you read this book. It feels like a very vibe-ish type of thing. It feels like Nicholas Winding Refn would come in with some synthwave music for it, you know, if he ever adapted this. Nicholas Winding Refn should make this into a movie. That would be great. Bring Lehman's stuff to life, man. Bring him some kind of, you know, audience, because the guy's been dead for like 20 years. But anyway, there's really not much more to talk about, aside from when it comes to the plot. It might sound like I'm giving a lot away for a 350-page book, but I'm really not. There's not a whole lot to discuss. There is another girl that Ed sees one night when he's walking around at nighttime by himself, and she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. Her name is Casey. He encounters her at one point in kind of a little bit of a weird chance situation, and he becomes obsessed, basically. And he really has a thing for this chick. Casey seems like the coolest chick in the book. I really like her. One of the best female characters Lehman ever wrote. That's a really good compliment, because a lot of Lehman females are just, they're not that great, and they're usually cannon fodder, if I'm being honest with you. Now, there's kind of another thing in here. Why is this not really a horror book? It probably doesn't sound like a horror book, basically because it's not really a horror book. It has elements of it. There is no supernatural content. Like I said, that's a good thing in my opinion. When Lehman kind of avoids that, Stephen King typically embraces it. It's why I'm more of a Lehman fan than a King fan, but I understand the advertisements and love for both, because I love both quite a bit. But this is the thing. The writing style here was the best I've ever seen from Lehman. If you're looking for an experience, which the book really wants to do for you, this is a book to pick up. I think you'll really like it if you happen to be a Lehman fan already. But if you're used to the cat and mouse game that Lehman plays, that is not what this book is. There's another element that's kind of there for like 10 pages, and then it vanishes until way later on in the story. And then it comes back for like 5 pages. And that would involve a bridge. That bridge scene is truly scary. It's truly a frightening thing to think about, because it's probably a real thing. It's something you've seen in movies. It's the kind of thing that it will bother you anytime you're in a bigger city and you see like a bridge at nighttime while you're walking by yourself, or even with one other person. It's something that could easily be very dangerous and be dangerous to you. I'm being vague because it's one of the best moments in the book, and it's pretty much the only scary part of this book, if I'm being honest with you. Again, most of this book is meandering, very much like this review. Somebody's flying down the road, as you can tell. What an asshole. But the book itself is fun. I like it, and I like Ed, I like Casey, I like Eileen. There is one character, though, I do want to talk about. His name is Kirkus. Kirkus is a fellow from England. He is a homosexual, and he is absolutely fucking awful. I can't stand this guy. He is the most, and he's supposed to be, an asshole. He's just a dude that always talks shit to our main character, Ed. They're not really buddies. But the way Kirkus handles himself, handles social situations, he's just an asshole. He totally is. I can't stand the guy. And every time he comes on the screen, or in my brain screen, whatever, I don't like him. I think he's awful. He is just a fucking scumbag, plain and simple. That's how I feel about this guy. But aside from that, I really don't have any complaints about the book. Yeah, it's a little loose. It feels like a lot of different story ideas, concepts, whatever, connected loosely into one big novel. Big as in 350 pages. It's not an amazing read for the typical reader who's looking for something to escape reality with. It has a lot of dark shit in this particular book that you haven't seen in a lot of Lehman stuff, as dark as most of his work can be. It's not really a splatterpunk book. If anything, Night in the Lonesome October, being one of his most creative books, is also one of his most least explicit reads, surprisingly. And still has some horrific shit that most people that would read this would be in shock because of how horrific it can get sometimes. But again, there's not a whole lot of blood or anything, so that's kind of limited a lot here. If you're not a fan of that, if you're looking for really gory stuff like a Brian Keene book or a Jonathan Mayberry book, you're not getting that here. Night in the Lonesome October is not your typical layman stuff. Maybe it's a good thing for you, maybe it's a bad thing for you, I don't know. I have some friends that might appreciate this. I have some friends who probably would say it sucks. It's probably one of the worst of his career to that particular person. But for me, I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good. As many of you might know, my personal favorite Lehman book at this current moment is Island. I love Island. This book is also kind of similar. It's not written as a diary the way Island is, but it's written in first person, from Ed's perspective. And I really enjoyed that. I think when Lehman does that, he really delves into his character that we're focusing on, and he does a great job with that here. That's a really fun part of this book. Ed is a good part of the book, even though he's a little creepy, but I do like him. I think he's a good guy overall. Being a young man, a student in college, all of that stuff, I really enjoyed Night in the Lonesome October overall. Really fun read, really big recommendation for me if you happen to be a Lehman fan. Not so much if you're an extreme horror fan like myself. It's not really that, but it is good for atmosphere, and that's a big thing that a lot of people look for in the horror genre fandom. You know, if you're looking for that kind of thing, this might be the place to go, frankly, if you're looking for atmosphere and not so much gore or violence or anything like that. When it comes to Richard Lehman's Night in the Lonesome October, if I had to rate this book on a 5-star basis, I think I would go with probably a 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, it has its flaws, very small flaws, frankly, but just enough to affect my overall enjoyment. I read this over a while. I started it before Christmas, and I just never got back around to it. I had so many other things I wanted to do. I got sick in January, had a lot of shit going on at work, and here I am. Anyway, Night in the Lonesome October, 4 out of 5 stars for me. I do recommend the book, like I said. What do you guys think about it? Have you read this? Have you read any Lehman? Do you love any of that stuff? Let me know down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear everything you have to say. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for watching. And again, I plan on having some reviews for some more H.P. Lovecraft stuff at some point. In the next couple of days, I'll try to get around to recording that and uploading it for you. Hopefully you'll like it, I don't know. But anyway, for now, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you guys, and goodbye.